Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I have a beautiful guest on my podcast. Had the pleasure of connecting with this man a year and a half ago. Time flies for me, man. But Mikhail Kuha, hopefully I said that right, men's coach, entrepreneur in tropical paradise, wasn't always living the Bali dream. Mikhail had an early rebellious streak that led him to being expelled from school and nearly not graduating. He found himself lost and puzzled with his identity and where to fit in. Like so many young, confused men with big decisions to make, he found himself at a crossroads of what to do with his life. After walking away from expectations of society and spending years testing different business models, he packed his bags and moved to Bali to follow the one thing that made sense in his world: passion. It was the best decision that he's ever made. He's now committed to reaching the hearts and minds of men in Australia. The path of not knowing what to do in life is all too familiar. Mikhail is here to make sense of the cloudy world of purpose, passion, and living out our dreams and give men the tools to do exactly that. A lot of alignment in that, bro. And man, thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course, bro. Thanks for having me on today.
Man, I think before we kick into it, I know everyone's got a story, and a story says so much about who you are, what you go through. It shapes us into who we are today. I know you obviously gave a little bit of your story in there, man, but I'd love for you to just share your story, and you can go as detailed as you want. And yeah, just tell us who you are and how you've become who you are today.
Yeah, man. Let's just kick off in school. Like, I was always the kid that would question everything in class. I was a religious school, and I would question, like, how do you know that's true? Did that actually happen? Like, why are you telling us this if you don't truly understand it? Like, from a smart ass standpoint, but like, I was never one to I guess follow the rules is very broad, but I was questioning everything and the things everyone done. And that led me to getting asked to leave from school. I had an early entrepreneurial streak where I was one of the first kids of the school to get broadband internet. So what I chose to do with that was download porn and burn it onto DVDs and sell it from my locker.
Oh, man.
Kind of got me in trouble, but made some cash. Yeah, and then like kind of left school, picked up whatever job paid the most. There's just we'll go through some cliff notes, and then found myself a few years later, everyone graduating from degrees and qualifications and like them getting paid more. And I was like, okay, maybe I got to sort my life out and go get myself a trade. So when I get qualified as a tiler, bathroom renovation, but it never felt right. None of it to me ever excited me or lit me up. It was the golden handcuffs of pays enough to go out on weekends, party with the boys. And one of my highest values, what I've come to realize over the years, is freedom. And the way I got freedom, because we will always step into what our highest values are, and we'll find it somewhere in life, whatever that is, whether it's sleeping around with 100 different people because you desire connection in life. For me, it was freedom. So I'd spend every weekend sending it, going out, just reckless. And that was my moment to experience that when nothing else mattered. I spent the next 8 years trying 8 different business models while working on job sites, continued to chase the money. And when a friend asked me, what would you do every single day, whether you were paid for it or not, it really struck a chord. And for me at that time was picking up a video camera. Wanted to be YouTube famous, wanted to film myself. And then after I'd done about 10, 12 vlogs, I was like, shit, no one's watching. This is harder than what I thought. The Dunning-Kruger effect which is essentially like someone's assumption of how difficult a task is going to be is a lot harder than what it is until you actually start doing it.
Yeah.
Got myself to a place where I was completely debt-free, decided, fuck it, let's just go over to Bali. I've always wanted to go over there over a few beers with friends, and found myself now in the coaching space because it kept coming back to the question, what do I want to do every single day, whether I was paid for it or not? I had people in my corner when I was going through some tough times. I had coaches and mentors that gave me permission to think differently and gave me the skills and tools to generate money online, to truly fucking love myself and lean into my strengths and also love my flaws. And it created a new person to who I am today. So that's what I continue to do now with guys, is give them those tools and skill sets. And now we live over in Bali. We got a couple of charity projects, myself and my new fiance. And that is where life is right now, man. So I didn't want to get too bogged down in any of the details there. Just give you the high notes in the last 20 years of my life.
Epic, man. And some things definitely stood out to me. I would love to know for you, something that stood out was the tools, but something also, actually, before we jumped on, is you mentioned something around people doing the work, and that's something I'm very passionate about and really resonates with me. I think I'd like for you to come share your story from someone who's come from, I don't want to use the word traditional, but just, I guess, the cliche, going party, drinking with the boys, having fun, living for freedom on the weekends, to be able to start to, I would assume, look within, start to look in the mirror and start to go to the places that most people don't want to go to. Could you share with your experience there and what that was like, and maybe give some tips along the way for someone who maybe is avoiding the work, maybe wants more and they think it's more of a strategy, like we were saying before, they're looking more for the surface level strategy, the funnel, the sales hack, the business model, where it's really the inner stuff that's holding them back the most. Could you speak into that for me, man?
I'm a big believer the internal will always dictate the external. It always does. And if you don't think it will, the reason you're not making $1 million a year right now and you want that in business is because you are not the person you need to be to make $1 million in business right now. That's a butchered quote from Hormozy. And it lands so true. And for me, I had all these goals and aspirations of what I wanted to do in life. And it is so fun to sit there with friends and talk about, we could do this, or we had this idea, or I saw this guy do that and I had that idea. If I just done that, then I would have. And it's like mental masturbation. It's sitting around with friends just talking about these concepts that could have happened, that they're not even the reality that is true. So for me, I'm not sure like what the question was there, but like for me, breaking out of that cycle was that feeling of that people have that they carry through every single day. When they look on Instagram, they see people doing really cool shit with their life. That feeling of you're keeping a lid on your current life and your current potential, and you know you've got more. You know there's something more. Everyone knows that feeling. That calling will come. You might not be aware to it right now. It might come up in the future, but when it comes, you get to choose. Do you keep ignoring that voice that you know you can do more and you shouldn't be stuck in an office cubicle 40 hours a week punching numbers into a fucking keyboard? And what do? Do you suppress that? Do you go buy a new pair of shoes, a new handbag, a new car, buy a house and convince yourself, no, this is what I should be doing? Just to drown down that voice? Because all we do is create noise. We create more noise in our actions and the things we do to dumb that down. Or do we lean into that? Do we put energy towards that? Because I tell you right now, if you lean into that even just a little bit, the scariest thing is finding out that all these years you've been spending, you're wrong. That's why a lot of times when you take a concept or an idea, or when I broke out of being a tradesman and I want to start an online business, one of my early things was network marketing, and I got fucking ridiculed to shit with that. And I think you're in that space as well.
Yeah, I was Herbalife back in the day. What'd you do?
Yeah, Isagenix.
Epic.
And I owe everything to that because that was my first personal development event.
Yeah.
And it was my aha moment where David Wood spoke on stage and I was like, fuck, I can think differently. I knew there was something more than what I currently knew. And then from that, breaking out of that, man, it's one of the hardest things you can do, because people around you will try to suppress you and keep you small playing their game. Because if you succeed, it makes them wrong internally.
Yeah.
If you succeed on the shit you love doing, and they've got their dreams, they've got the shit they want to do and they've never done it, then they're like, oh shit. It'll be a real, like, you'll hold up a mirror to them so they can see themselves and be like, wow, he has done that.
Love it, man. Love it, love it, love it. Can we, I guess, what was your introduction into it? So if we were to go down kind of, I guess what I'm trying to extract here is your transformation. So to go from Mikkel, the old version, let's say the unconscious, I obviously I wouldn't call you self-victim, but back in there, that's where I was playing victim. I was blaming until I got into the self-development space, started taking responsibility for my fucking life instead of blaming, instead of distracting myself with drinking, with smoking, with partying, with whatever it may be. How did you go from I guess, the starting point, the aha moment? If you said Isagenix, network marketing, got the aha moment. What was your journey like to start to do the work? What did you start doing? Was there books? Was there mentors? Did you have any spiritual healers? Like, what was that transition like for you? What was your journey like?
A bit of everything, man. Yeah, honestly, like it all started with podcasts. Like I would listen to 8 hours of podcasts a day because I was on construction sites and I just had headphones in.
Good.
And if you don't have the networks and friends and circles around you right now to lean on, you can dive into a book, you can dive into an audiobook or podcast, because it's just exposure to different conversations, and you're starting to rewrite the conversation internally for you. And that is also giving yourself permission to do things differently. That's where it started with me. I didn't have a ton of money to invest in a mentor or a coach or anything. But then I started to see the importance. I was like, shit, if I listen to a couple of books and this can change this much, what happens when I work with one-on-one with someone intensively? What happens when I fly to Vegas and do a 10-day intensive with some of the best speakers in the world? Like, what's possible for me? And I've done all this and I spent thousands and thousands of dollars. But the biggest breakthrough for me in all of this was experiential learning. Not reading the books, filling in the worksheets, taking what I learned and applying it in the real world. That is the difference between knowing you should do something and truly understanding what it means and how it plays out in life.
How did you apply it?
Like,
are you talking relationships? Are you talking business? How did you do it?
Yeah. Okay. And a prime example of it was when I started meditating. And I was meditating for 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day. Look, it ended up leading into going to 4 100-hour meditation retreats in 4 years, where you sit in meditation for 10 hours a day, no talking, no, it's like a 600 calories of, it's normally vegan-based diet, no talking, no eye contact, no human connection.
What's that like?
No phones,
I think we
no
spoke
journaling,
a little bit
nothing.
about this last time on the other podcast. What was that like?
You will face off with every story, idea, and thought about yourself that you've ever had in your life. You will experience every memory because it is stored. The body is like a library. It remembers everything. It will come up and come through, and you'll be able to look at your whole life objectively from a bird's eye view, from a non-emotional reactive place, and see it more for the reality of what it is. The Vipassana practice is essentially like being able to see reality for what it is. And when I speak about experiential learning, like for me, I'm not sure which meditation story we may have touched on last time. The power of this practice is, and I'm not like a monk meditator. I went to this retreat after meditating 10 minutes a day, and I was like, oh, we're going to sit for 10 hours? Yeah, cool. 30 minutes in, like, oh shit, we got 10 days of this. So for me, man, like I was sitting in my bedroom at about 24, 25 years old, and I was meditating maybe the 3rd or 4th night in a row, and I used to use white noise because white noise would help quiet the mind. And as I was sitting there, by the way, I was in a house at 25 years old, scared of the dark. Like something I would never tell anyone. I live with some of my best mates. I go out and get a glass of water at night, and I walk out to the kitchen, and my heart would race. I'd envision things popping out and John. That's just where my imagination went. I don't know if anyone listening can relate with that.
I can
relate something I'd never share.
Yeah,
yeah. And I'm sitting there, and as I'm sitting there, I'm sitting on the bed, and I envision like it was more so the heart rate started to pick up, and I started to feel really hot. And then I envision in the corner of the room this, if you were to see Harry Potter, like a Dementor kind of thing come up under through the door and come up over me. And as I feel this in my room, I'm like, what the fuck? Like I'm like, what the fuck is going on right now? This is like completely sober as well, by the way. And I'm sitting there and my heart's starting to pick up. It's going faster, faster, faster. And I'm getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And there's this voice in my head say, Mikkel, open your eyes, open your eyes, open your fucking eyes, open your eyes right now. And I envision myself as like a little 12-year-old boy sitting on this bed. And this thing starts coming up, up, up and over me. And the voice gets louder. Open your eyes, open your eyes, open your fucking eyes. You need to open your eyes right now. And in one moment, this other voice says, you're okay. You're safe. Stay here. I get goosebumps every time I share this story. And in that moment, the whole room just cleared. I had no idea what had just happened. And I'm sitting there. And I wasn't ready to come out of it. I gave it a few more minutes. And as I came out of it, I opened my eyes and I was like, I had no idea what just happened. A couple of nights later, I'm going to get a glass of water from the kitchen at night. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a G. I'm not scared of the dark at all. Like, I'm good. Like, and it took me a little while to link up that was the thing that happened. But what it was there was a childhood trauma I had attached to that. I woke up one night, sleep paralysis, and heard a little girl laughing in the corner of my room, like, which scared the shit out of me for the unknown of what's in the dark. What I realized, this was a trauma that was stored inside that had come up. And when you allow to sit in it, non-reactive, it's what they refer to as a sankhara in the Buddhist practice. And what it is, it's a sankhara is like a trauma or something that has happened to you in life, and we store it internally. And when you can allow it to come up and through and stay non-reactive to it, you can actually release it. And a lot of times they believe it's stored in fascia, the energetic in fascia. So when I talk about applying for experiential learning, that is a version of it. Another version of it is a tough conversation with a family member, a friend, a business partner. It's going out. If you run 5K every day, go out and just run until you can't run anymore. Find out the stories that you really tell yourself. Stay disciplined 30 days to something that you think is really going to test you. These are all experiential learning. Get in front of a group of people and share like the thing you're most scared of. You can read about what it will do and how it will help you. But until you do it, you won't truly get the lesson that's there for you.
That was amazing. Great story, bro. Really great story. How do you help people? Let's go into that. What is it that you do? So you help men, you help touch their hearts and minds, or allow them to connect with their hearts and minds. What do you mean? How do you help people?
Yeah. So look, there's a lot of things in life I'm not good at, like my taxes, making my bed in the morning, doing the dishes. But some things I'm really good at is helping guys deconstruct the mental confusion in their head and break it down in very simple ways and actionable steps to them to apply in their life to get results straight away. And a lot of the times, the one thing guys don't realize they're missing until they have it is community. This internal chatter, this internal dialogue that's going on, they think it's just them. I don't fucking share it with anyone. And when you have someone, another man, who can sit and hold that space for you and listen and understand and question with non-judgment, a lot of guys, it's the first time they've even been able to vocalize this. And when they start to vocalize it, it actually starts to make more sense. So what I help them do is get clarity around their thoughts, help them understand the thoughts they have. They're not in there alone. But then when they actually build that awareness, then they can start to integrate the lessons they learn. And with that, it's awareness, integration, then application. So we become aware we do a lot of shadow work. So shadow work is essentially identifying blind spots in your life, things you might not be aware of about yourself, or things you carry shame, resentment, guilt around.
Yeah.
And then we integrate that. And then we create practices to apply that in life.
How do you integrate? I've heard of shadow work before. I understand. From my understanding, anyways, it's similar. It's everything that you're saying, and pretty much going and learning to love and accept those parts of people that they've kind of pushed to the side, or I think is bad. They have guilt, shame, all those things are out. So how do you go about, for someone listening to this and they've got these parts that they haven't spoken to anyone about? They're holding on to it. They're suppressing it. They haven't got a safe space to do so. What can they do? How can someone, whether they have to go out and find someone, that might be a step in there, but how can someone start to integrate those parts of themselves so they don't have that guilt or that shame or that anger just suppressed and stored inside of them?
One of the biggest ways, one of the ways I've found the most effective for myself and clients is if we have guilt and shame around who we've been and what we've done in the past, everyone says, forgive yourself for that. You need to forgive yourself, but it's like, how? How do I forgive myself? You can't just say, yes, I forgive myself, I'm good now. Or you write 1,000 notes in your journal, or you scream affirmations in the mirror. Like, it doesn't work. So there needs to be some kind of like connection from one point to another to know why you can forgive yourself and give yourself permission to do that. And that's through understanding. It's like understanding when you took that action or you done that thing, the place you're in, look at your environment. Understand you only knew what you knew in that moment. And maybe you did cheat on a partner, say, in the past, and you regret that. Well, understand maybe you've been cheated on before, or you weren't happy in the relationship, or you were taking out your resentment on this person, or this anger on this person, or you've seen that played out in your parents' relationship. So you mirrored that. 1,000 different scenarios, right? Yeah. So when you can look at that and understand that, oh, I'd done that because I was hurt from my last relationship. I'd done that because I never spoke my truth in that relationship. And it was my way of vocalizing. I'd done that because I was scared to lean in. And I pushed this person away because I didn't want to be so vulnerable. There's so many different ways to do that. I can't tell someone the reason why they feel the way they do. But if you take enough time and quiet the noise of life to understand yourself on a deeper layer, you will start to realize why you do the things you do and how that's played out. Then you can start to give yourself.
This is fucking beautiful, bro. Beautiful, beautiful stuff.
Thank you, my man.
What are some of the daily practices or weekly practices that you do?
Drink coffee every day.
There's the podcast right there, ladies and gentlemen. What do you do to practice this, to integrate it, I'm assuming meditation comes into it. I'm sure you don't do 10 hours all the time.
No.
What do you do to embody this stuff, to actually live this? Because I would assume anyway, it's just like a body. If you don't train it, you lose it, right? You can't just get fit and you're fit for life. It's something that is done consistently. So what do you do to maintain this level of awareness, level of consciousness, level of self-worth, everything that we're talking about?
A big one for me is the relationship I have with my partner. Like, the conversations we have are on a level I've never had conversations with people before. And consistently being in that space asks for a deeper, more high-level man from me. So that what I'm getting to is that sets the standard for how I show up in life. Like, you need to choose a standard that you're committed to showing up in life. And especially if you're in the coaching space and people are coming to you for mentorship, for advice, for support, you need to hold a standard and a frame, because if you start speaking into something you're not, you might not get found out. A lot of people don't, but that internal voice will start to get louder. Outside of that, I've been in the gym for the last 12, 13 years, at least 5 days a week. Run, ice bath, a little bit of breath work, a little bit of meditation. Right now, I'm not so much into those practices. But one of the biggest things for me is like scaling a business, man. Like scaling a business and being in a conscious partnership will be the fast track to personal development.
Yeah.
You take 100% ownership in a business. Like, once you don't know the shadows that it will bring up until you actually step into this space.
100%.
Because people that are employed, it's like as soon as 5 o'clock clicks, hey, 1 o'clock clicks and you're tuned out and you're getting paid every week. That's security there. As soon as you take that away, you find out who you really are. How do you really show up?
Beautiful stuff. Beautiful. I was just letting that sink in. Can you go into relationships for me, man? It's actually been quite a theme of mine. And we're speaking a little bit before this when we jumped on. How does a relationship play a part in the growth, or, like, to use the words, doing the work? How does that actually show up day to day in the confine of a relationship? My belief anyways is that you attract the partner that will reveal the parts of you that you haven't worked through. You're going to find someone to mirror those parts of you, as we mentioned earlier, that are going to show those parts of you that you probably haven't worked on. So you're going to get triggered. It's going to cause arguments, and it's going to cause not necessarily arguments, but it's going to cause you to go into those wounds, to go into those parts of you, to work through it. If you've got the consciousness, if you've got the tools, if you've got the right partner to hold space with. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that topic and that question of how does a relationship play a part in doing the work as a man?
One of the things that really like comes up for me right now is there's a certain standard you need to hold. Like, you don't clock off from a relationship, especially when you're living with someone. And if you, like, Selena and myself have a business together, so it's easy to, be a grumpy bastard, be angry, be shitty, clock off for a few days when you're by yourself. But there's anyone can, enjoy while the times are good. But it's just like when you're struggling and when you're going through something, and you still need to show up for your partner, for your business, and that is the moments when you will really have a mirror held up and be like, hey, you're showing up like this right now, and I need more from you. And when you consistently, like, you used to be in high level sports, rugby. Yeah. So, like, if you play amateurs for a bit, or you like play on a local league, like, your quality of game drops after a while. Hey, you step it up a level when you get on the field with the big boys and start running like higher divisional sports. You need to step up, and then that becomes normal. That becomes your new normal, and that is the area you play at. So I forget your actual question, but I was speaking to, like, go ahead.
I was going to say, just to remind the question is, how does a relationship play a part for a man who's on his work journey, his self-discovery journey, doing the inner work? How does a relationship play a part in that journey?
Yeah. So it is all of that, man. And just like redefining your new normal and how you show up in the world. And that's a huge part it plays. It also allows, I wouldn't speak specifically to men, but I speak to men and women. It allows us to open up those wounds for those to be healed. Whatever, like, the relationship should be the safest space for you to just truly be you all of the time. And that is, I feel like that's one of the biggest things I've taken away from a relationship. Like, we have different personality types, all of us. And just because you're in one group, you're like the laughing, joking guy. In another group, you're a bit more quiet and timid. Like, these are all aspects of ourselves. Yeah. But when you're in a partnership, you get to just be all of that all the time. Yeah. And the way that helps us grow and evolve is, it's okay to be like this. It's okay to show up as this person. I know for myself, going through friendship groups when I was younger, like, certain groups, I'd wear different clothes, I'd show up differently, I'd drink more, I'd say different things. And it's not that, I think a lot of times people confuse that as like being fake or false. And it's like, no, like, it's always a part of you, but it's like, which part are you putting the spotlight on there and then? Because as we grow and develop, we're always leaning into different areas of ourselves to feel what feels good on us. Just like when we try different businesses and go in different partnerships and relationships, like, we're not sure really 100% what we want yet. So we're trying things out.
I got a question. It's kind of a two-part question. Is a relationship, to get to that point, is it purely who you pick, or is there also things that you can put in place to get to that point? Like, your partner that you're now engaged with, I'm just assuming that you didn't get together and you're magically at that point where you guys, or maybe you were. So is it, in your opinion, is it more so the person you pick, or is it the things you put in place, having the tough conversations, getting to know each other's wounds and learning how to hold space? Because I guess you don't really learn how to do that, like you said, until you experience it. So yeah, is it more down to the person that you pick, or is it how you construct or hold a relationship, or is it a bit of both?
Both. Yeah. You can't just pick a magical girlfriend and expect her to come and just do everything, fix everything, and make sure everything's okay. It's just not how it works. A relationship's 50-50. You've both got your 50 and you need to show up for that. The way it's evolved is, I remember a key moment in our relationship where I was like, this is the girl I'm going to marry. Like,
Well
and
done.
when you get to that point, this is the girl I'm going to marry. And when you get to that point where like we're going in this direction together, like it makes all the conflict that comes along the way so much easier, because you've gone through that cycle, you've gone through, you know what's on the other side, you know we're getting through this. And when you're like, when you can, my friend Corey says, 99% commitment is a bitch and 100% commitment's a breeze. And I 100% agree with that, man. It's like when you're 100% committed to something, all the things that come along the way, the slaps, the hits, not physical slaps and hits, but the bumps in the road, for a less physical abusive metaphor, you know, you're just like, you're still going down this path, you're still going forward in that. And one of the biggest things that's made that so much easier for me is like complete and utter acceptance of every aspect of her, just like she has for me. And she has shown me that in our relationship. Like I've shown up in different ways. I'm like, fuck, I'd be pissed if someone done that to me. And the space she's held, the non-judgment frame she's come from, has allowed me to see that in myself and then be like, choose something different moving forward. And I feel like so often in relationships, we get into early on, and as you know, the honeymoon period goes over, we start to, some of us can start to pick out the flaws and see what they're not doing. And like, and if you can move through that and have complete acceptance, like, I don't care, like, obviously there's boundaries in relationships, but no matter how she shows up, I have full acceptance for that.
How, I'm just trying to word this properly. What have been the biggest blocks and limitations that your relationship, that the relationship forced you, not forced you, but you had to get to that level? You, like you said, there was maybe a moment where you realized she's the one for you, or maybe it was some blocks in yourself that you had to work through. And when you worked through it, you were ready for it and it allowed you to love and commit 100%. I absolutely agree with what Corey was saying. So
Yeah.
what has the relationship, I guess, shone light on or forced you to work through for you to get to the level where you are fully committed to this relationship? And the reason I'm asking this is I've come from an upbringing of friends and family members where it's like relationship turns to shit, gets messy. They blame the other person. It ends. They get into another one. Same thing happens. Get into another, and it just repeat. And it's like they kind of, it's like the dabbler where they try a new sport, they get a lot of growth, honeymoon period, really awesome, sexy, amazing. And then, oh my God, all this trauma and shit, fucking hell, fuck this. I'm going to get out of here, go find another one. But they don't really get that shift. They don't really break the 4-minute mile. They don't really get past that threshold. So I'd love to know from you, some of the stuff you work through, I guess, for reason of sharing, so people that are listening can understand that there is things you need to work through. It's not just pick the relationship, the magical partner and sunshine and rainbows. It's like it's like going to the fucking gym. You got to fucking work for it, right? You got to actually earn the right to have a beautiful, intimate, connecting, fulfilling relationship. Big question. What have you had to work through for you to get to the level of relationship that you have right now?
I think what you said is really cool as well. Like you have to work for it. Like you don't just get in a relationship and it's like, we are rock solid for life. Like you build that rock solid foundation. It's not there at first. Don't convince yourself it is because the dopamine and oxytocin and all these chemicals are firing because it's a new fun experience. It's like you build that shit. And as a guy in those initial stages, none of your friends are fucking championing monogamy. Yeah, bro, 4 years. Fucking yes. Never cheated. Champion. Like boys are like, how many girls you sleep with last week? 3, my man. Like no one's championing that shit. Circles I've come from. So the biggest limitation I had to get over, which was huge and it was there for a while, is that feeling of if I get in a relationship, I lose my freedom. And I feel like a lot of guys go that, and girls would go through it as well. It's like, oh, this is shit. I got to fit into this box the rest of my life now. But what I found was with us just having an open conversation around this and like hearing her opinion and just exposing myself to content online, And this is the difference between I started the conversation and it took probably 6 to 12 months to actually land and integrate, and me to embody and understand and actually believe it, not rinse and repeat a quote off Instagram, like to truly embody that, was I was able to be more free in my relationship. Coming back to what we said before, I can be 100% Mikkel all the time. I also have the freedom to take risks in business and know that I can come home to her to have that nurturing and support no matter what happens. The freedom I don't have is all the things that I don't need or want now. And people had this like this mindset of, as soon as I'm with this one person, all these things aren't available to me anymore. But there's so much more available to you in this container, in the internal. The external, there might not be, you know, more girls or more guys or more events and social, like whatever opportunities. But the real thing you get internally, you won't get that outside of a relationship.
Absolutely fucking agree with it, man. Absolutely agree. What I thought of a question as you were talking, but I didn't want to cut you off. I'll come back to it. There was a question that I'll ask. I will come back to me. I'd love to hear, I guess, the words healing that comes to mind. And I say this again, from my experience, there's been a lot of stuff I've had to work through from my upbringing, from my dad, from my school bullies, from my bad relationships, and just the upbringing as a whole. And healing, when most men, from my experience anyways, hear that, it's like, oh, well, that's that soft bullshit. What the fuck are you talking about? And it kind of reinforces the stuff that I think needs a bit more work on. I'd love to hear, I guess, what's been your experience with healing work? What would you say to someone that is resistant to doing healing work, resistant to doing the inner work? What would you speak on into that?
The language around healing work isn't something I really lean on at all. I would see it more as like self-discovery and uncovering like the truth of who you are. And I can sound a bit like broad, like the truth of who you are. But it's able to see reality like clearly for what it is. And going back to that understanding to forgiveness piece from before, like the doing the work, it's understanding that you're only playing from the current lens you view life. You know, if we're looking through life as a camera lens, all the events, things that have happened to you are all these filters stacked on top. And when you can start to bring awareness to why you think the way you do, because this happened or this person said this. And remember, these filters are all little bits of trauma, and trauma is relative. Trauma can be Cindy's in the backseat of the car, 8 years old, singing, and mum's had a shit day. She's like, Cindy, shut the fuck up. You're not a good singer. Oh, Cindy holds on to that now. I'm not a good singer. Trauma could be being raped. Trauma could be losing your dream job, having your partner walk out on you. Trauma could be breaking a leg. Like, it's relative, and it depends on how we perceive it in that moment. Now, I'm using some pretty extreme examples there to draw those two apart. So I'm not sitting here saying like one is the same as the other, but it's relative to how we interpret the situation. I want to be careful with some using language like that. And then I've completely lost the point now, because I wanted to make sure I didn't get banned and offend anyone in saying that.
No, speak your truth, brother. Go for it.
The healing side of things, So like understanding, looking at life through the lenses, and all these things that have happened are just filters stacked in that lens. And when we can start to see clearly, get more clarity on life, to see it for what it truly is, to look at things objectively, which meditation is amazing practice for, we can start to remove these stories, events, beliefs that have happened, because it usually goes down the cycle of event, story, belief. Event happens, we give it a story, creates a belief around us. That is now who we are. This is the identity of who we are. And when we can look at them and start to rewrite them, that is when the internal then recreate the external outside of that.
So much fucking gold, man. So much gold. What's something that you're working through that the world doesn't see?
Money. Like the idea of money and the idea of my exchange for money in the space I'm in, to be 100% honest. it's like I always had these big monetary goals, and then about a year ago, I hit a crazy goal, and I was like, the fuck just happened? Like I didn't know I could do that. And then I kind of took the foot off the gas a bit and was like, I can just chill now because this just happened. Look at the month revenue.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, that month's gone now.
Yeah.
It's the third, it's the fourth, it's the fifth, and now the revenue's not there. That was last month. So for me, like, money would be the main thing I'm working through right now. And really trying to understand the conversation around like need and want. You know, like
that's a good conversation.
I've built a life. Yeah, I built a life for myself over here in Bali where I don't need much to live. I'm fucking full every single day. I sit downstairs and Selena and I have a coffee for an hour every morning. We train together. We walk the dogs twice a day. The coaching calls light me up. The programs I'm building excite me. And it's like,
that's really cool.
The biggest thing for me is like, yeah, that it's like, this is great. Like, this is so good. And I know there's more, and I know but it's just something like, I'm just honestly, I know where I'm at with it right now. And I will get to that next level as long as I keep pushing the envelope and stay in the pocket and stay disciplined, because something will supersede that. The action will dictate the result. I'm not just going to get the result with the action. But yeah, for me right now, that's just something I'm working through and working on. Yeah, to be 100% honest with you, man.
Thank you, brother. I love, but I've been adding that into the end of my podcast just to be vulnerable, because this is obviously part of my passion, and part of what I do is I feel that there is a lot of people that try to pedestal themselves and they show all their upsides and how great they are. And you're definitely haven't been like that on this podcast anyways. You're very vulnerable with your story, but I've had people, I used to do it. I'd see someone on social media and I'd see what they're doing. I'm like, oh my God, they're so much better than me. They're so smarter than me. They're perfect. There's no wrongs. But everyone, I think that just the question itself allows people listening to say, oh my God, this guy's a normal guy. He's changing lives and has done some fucking epic shit, but he's still working on himself, just like you, just like me, just like the person listening to this right now. If you had one message to leave for the world, or one pager, what would you say?
This sounds a bit like an Instagram quote, but you are so much more capable than what you currently understand for yourself. And what I mean when I say that is, look at all the actions and habits you've been taking over the last few years and the thoughts and ideas you've had. Like, if there's a huge gap between them, you have the potential to fulfill them. And the more and more you delay taking action on the shit that really excites you, we live in a world where you can monetize anything. I could sit here and like do coffee mug breakdowns on YouTube, and there'd be people out there that watch it. Like, you can monetize literally anything. And the opportunity cost that it's costing you right now to not lean into the things you fucking love doing in life, you will have that regret. That will come up. You cannot avoid that. No matter what you do, that will sit there and that will fester. And you will talk to friends when you're 60 and 70 and talk about all these things you could have, should have, would have done. I just invite you right now to take action, whatever that is. It doesn't need to be starting that huge business. It can just be starting a YouTube channel. It can be sitting in front of a camera and recording a video. You don't even need to post it. If I could show you my first videos I posted speaking to camera,
cringe.
I watched too many Eric Thomas promo clips, and I started to talk to like him, like, come on, y'all. Like,
come on, if you want to succeed as hard as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful.
Yeah, that's the one. And yeah, I wish everyone could see Jordan and Kobe working out in high school when they weren't who they are.
Yeah.
Because so many people see a finished product, and so many people are fronting on social media about what they do and all the strategies and everything. And they're just like, everyone online has a product to sell if they're showing up consistently and speaking on what they are. Like, let's all be honest. I do it. I've got products to sell, and I want to attract the people that I feel like I'll really align with. So get out there, find someone who has created what you want to create in life, reach out to them, fucking work for them for free. Like, start moving towards something that really excites you, because life will get so much better and it will generate energy. When you are on purpose and alignment with what you truly love in life, it gives you energy. It doesn't suck your soul sitting at a job every single day.
Absolute fire to finish the podcast, bro. Man, if someone wanted to connect with you, wanted to just say thank you, wanted to interested in your services, where can they find you?
Instagram, Mikele.k, Mikele.k. That's where I'm at. That's the one space you can contact me. Yeah.
Thank you, brother. Been a beautiful conversation. You're helping a lot of people. You're going to help so many more, and the animals as well. And thank you, brother, for your time.
Awesome. Thank you, bro.